I was thinking about how to approach this, and first I looked in the Parsha of the week, and I thought, wonderful, it's Parsha Shmini, this is going to be great. But we don't do that this week because of Pesach. So I had to backtrack real quick and find something else to talk about. And I figured that I would talk about myself. Pretty standard. No, it's Mike's Musings. So sometimes we talk about me. And the thing that came up for me the most was in preparation for Pesach. You do a little shtickle spazier in the Haggadah, see what it says, remind yourself of some good times. And what always comes up for me is the four sons. This is something that always been tafus by. Some years, they let me read the Chacham. Some years it's the Rasha. Depends on what what's the vibes, as the kids say. Yeah, we don't ask those questions. It's not often that I'm, Sheino Yodei Lishol or Tam. I usually have too much to say, but it's actually one of the interesting things is that as we go through different years in the Seder, we say B'chol Dor Vador. There's something interesting for me that I'm seeing as I watch the Seder evolve, because there's new entrants. They come in, and then all of a sudden, Manishtana used to take 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden it starts taking the next one has to go, and all of a sudden it's the shifts in the vibe of the Seder. So it's obvious that we have to have the Seder, the Sipur of Yetzias Mitzrayim is a very important part of this. Mesorah, passing it on from generation to generation. We do all these things that the children should ask. There's a very important part of this passing from generation to generation. So I feel like, in a way, part of this experience is passing from generation to generation. And yet at the same time, there's the other side of the story, which is that we have to maintain a connection with telling the Sipur. There's something that we have to do every single year that's sort of stays the same. And as I was doing this neurotic exposure of who I am and which son do I feel like more connected with this year, I was also reminiscing on the vort that I give every single year. And I'm asking myself, should I do it this year? So you guys are going to hear it. I don't know if this will happen at the Seder, but this is the Maisa. So the Haggadah, first we'll go through this as kind of as we do. It's a very interesting book. And in a way, we think about the four sons, it follows a narrative maybe that talks to them a little bit. We start off with this, telling of the story in a very loose Avadim Hayinu. We have a sing-song at the beginning. There's some questions, Manishtana. And then there's this period where it feels like we hit maybe, I don't know, this is the boring part of the Seder, but there is that part in the middle where we do all kinds of drushim and acronyms, and there's this period of the Seder where we're doing, in my opinion, very interesting stuff, but it'll also be a little challenging to go through. And then we end off with the halachos. And it's interesting, on Pesach you have to say these things. And I think in a way this echoes what we're talking about to the four sons. We have, first somebody maybe is not able to ask questions, so we tell them the story in simple terms. Then maybe they ask some simple questions. We open up to them a little bit. We help them understand a little bit more, Manishtana. Then we spend all this time, when somebody asks the harsh questions, giving them drush. We explain, well, no, it's this way, and it's this way, and here's the source, and there's the source. And then at the end, we end off with this halacha of Pesach, Matza, Umar. And that's how we talk to the Chacham. So it's this sort of narrative that we have of talking to people, that are an evolving scale of understanding. We pepper in some songs, which is very nice. But at the same time, that inflection point from the simple and from those that don't understand, from the Tam and the Sheino Yodei Lishol, to those that do understand and either are embracing or fighting the Rasha and the Chacham, is the Maisa. The Maisa with all these rabbis in Bnei Brak. So the vort that I get to tell every single year is, okay, it's amazing. We just got through telling Hareza Meshubach. Any person who tells this, no, it doesn't matter how wise you are, how learned, how much you know this. It's amazing that we should tell the story. So we bring down a story of some wise people who are telling over this story. A good example of modeled behavior of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. They told it all night. And the vort that I have is, well, there were always many rabbis who used to tell this story. Why do we pick these ones? And the story goes that what's amazing about these 5 rabbis is that at first glance you would say they're wise people. But when you look at who they are, we understand a little bit more about them that makes the fact that they're telling this story even more amazing. These 5 rabbis are descendants from people who didn't really need the salvation in the same way that the rest of the Jews could have. Rabbi Akiva is a descendant from Gers, so his ancestors weren't actually in Mitzrayim. The other 4 rabbis, I can't remember who is who. This is really bad because this is the one vort I tell every year. But they're either descendants from Levites or Kohanim. So again, Shevet Levi, they didn't experience the slavery in the same way. So what's amazing is that right after the the Haggadah tells us that you're praiseworthy for continuing to tell over the story, we learn about people who are telling a story that's not really about their ancestors. So this kind of gives us a little bit more of a pause for thought. Okay, it's an amazing thing to think about these people telling over this story. Okay, so that was the first, I think, understanding. That was what I had. But I was looking for something more because I muse. We're going to learn something new this year. We're going to find something else to talk about. I was looking in the Haggadah of Rabbi Sachs, and as I was looking through it, there was something that kind of stood out to me. So if we think about these super wise people, right? These are the 5 rabbis. They are Hareza Meshubach, and what does it say that they're doing? It says that they were, I wish I had the words in front of me, they were a Sipur, they were talking in the story of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim all night, right? And if we think about what we just learned about the 4 sons, we have here 4 sons, and when we look at the answers that they're given, the Chacham is given an answer about halacha. And the other 3 sons are being given basically the same answer, packaged up in slightly different ways, about you tell him the story and you say ba'avur zeh, or you say, this is why we got taken out. We talk about the story. So what's interesting is that the wise rabbis that we bring down are not sitting and talking about halacha. They're talking about the other stories. So whichever category you want to put them in, of Tam, Sheino Yudei Elisho, Rasha, Chas v'Shalom, whatever, the rabbis that we're talking about are not in the category of halacha. So it stands out that there must be some kind of a reason to talk about why they would not be talking about halacha. So Rabbi Sachs brings down a very interesting additional understanding to this story about the context of these people and what's happening at the time. So first things first, we know the story is happening in Bnei Brak and not in Yerushalayim. It's also not happening in Yavne, which is the other place that maybe some stuff will happen later. But there's an amazing context that happens to help us understand really what's going on here and why they're telling stories instead. So at this time, Israel's under Roman control. There's a whole bunch of revolts and unrest. Eventually, what will come is the revolt of Bar Kokhba. Very sad time, massive amounts of Jewish lives lost, and that time. But what's the story we say? The story that we say is sinas chinam is the problem at the time. And when we look at this story, the context surrounding it helps us really see that kind of emblematic in its time. There's a story that says that Rabban Gamliel was the Nasi, and he was the Nasi at the time. And at this time, there's a story that he was having conversations with Rabbi Yoshua, who was the son of the Sanhedrin at the time. and there were three arguments that they had where they had disagreements. So the first one was a disagreement about a firstborn animal, and it had a blemish, and there was a discussion about whether or not it should be brought as a korban or not. And Rabban Gamliel made Rabbi Yoshua stand in front of the people with his what was considered his wrong statement. Then we have the more famous story, maybe that most of us know, which is the idea of when is Rosh Hashanah, when is the Kiddush HaChodesh, and Rabban Gamliel says one day, Rabbi Yoshua says another one, and Rabban Gamliel forces Rabbi Yoshua to come with his wallet and his stick on the wrong day of Yom Kippur when he says it would be his day. So he embarrasses him publicly. And then later there's another example where they're discussing whether or not Mariv is an optional rishus, and Rabbi Yoshua says yes it is, and then eventually he disagrees. He says, you know what, I'll take back my Pesach, and I'll agree with you, Rabban Gamliel. And Rabban Gamliel forces him to stand in front of the rishus and in front of everyone and kind of be embarrassed for taking his wrong stance. So because of this, they remove him as the Nasi, and they make Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah the Nasi at this time. So this helps understand why next Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is explaining his story, why I'm the Nasi, why I'm old, but it also gives us a little bit of context to understand who we're talking about. So we have Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who's the Nasi, and we're in Bnei Brak. And Bnei Brak at the time is where Rabbi Akiva was. It's Rabbi Akiva's house. And at the time, what's interesting, Rabbi Sachs brings down that the discussion on the Brisa says that they were having a big debate over how late you're allowed to do Sipur. Can you only do it until Chatzos? Can you keep doing it until the morning? Was it like Nosar, or was it like the Afikomen? So there's different understandings. And Dafka, in true Rabbi Akiva fashion, in order to avoid a possible scenario of somebody being embarrassed and going back into this mode that they had just seen from Rabban Gamliel, we see that they Dafka didn't talk about halacha at all, and they only talked about Sipur, so they wouldn't come to that same discussion of the debate of halacha, and they wouldn't embarrass each other. So I think, on some level, what it at first pass is this transition of from the Tam and the Sheino Yodel Lishol to this drush and this halachic segment here, maybe in a way is giving us the opposite understanding, that actually, when you look at the context of what happened, really what this is about V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, is about being welcoming and accepting in a different light from the Seder. So maybe when I was thinking about it, it sounds like we're getting more philosophical, we're intellectual, we're doing all this stuff that switches into a different mode in the Seder. But maybe underlying all of that is a different kind of a guidance that b'chol dor v'dor we should really do more inclusion and welcoming and think about things not from the perspective on Pesach. We're so attached to this idea that, that's right and that's not how we do, and this is, we're very specific about how much mar I can chew in the side of my mouth before shear is overdone. And not to say in any way, shape, or form that we shouldn't follow the halachos, but find the right balance for the other side of things also, to welcome each other and treat each other kindly as we go into this otherwise slightly stressful time.